Hello my lovely and welcome to the channel. This weekend we took some time out to go up to Glenveigh National Park, and every time we get up to the loch up near the castle it just takes my breath away looking up the glen. It's absolutely stunning. You can't see it here, but right up the head of the glen there's what's known as the Stalker's Hut, and it's meant to be a pretty cool wee spot. I've not been there yet, but I'm hoping to go soon. But just looking around here, it gives me that lovely feeling of calm, and it reminds me a bit of being up in the Highlands of Scotland. I don't know if it reminds you of that when you look at it. But now we're looking down the other end of the loch and away back round, and it just, it's beautiful. The kids love going up that turret there, and you can't hear them in this video, but they're shouting at the top of their lungs, having the best time ever. So let's go and have a wee nosy at what's going on in the polytunnel. It's getting to that time of year where everything's just winding down, it's all dying back, and it's time to start thinking about putting the garden to bed. So as you can see, big changes in here. The tomatoes have been pulled out. Still waiting on the jalapenos to ripen a little bit. But what I'm in here for today is the New Zealand spinach. So this is the New Zealand, that's the Lemon Verbena in front. But that kind of arrow-shaped leaf, that is New Zealand spinach. And it is really nutritionally dense, and it's a shame for it to go to waste, so I am going to harvest it today and make good use of it. So now we're back inside, and I have spent quite a amount of time stripping the leaves off the stalks. This is, I know it doesn't look it, but it's actually a really, really large bowl. Love this bowl, it's fantastic. Get yourself a big bowl if you're into food prep. It makes a big difference. So what I'm doing with this is I am going to blanch it ready to freeze. So I have a pot of boiling water here, and I'm going to put all the New Zealand spinach leaves into it. And then as soon as they are just kind of wilting down and just cooked, I'm going to plunge them into icy water, and this will preserve the colour and stop them going that awful sludgy brown. So if I just put these into the freezer as they are, when they defrost, they'll just go to a sludge. So this way of doing it just makes it a lot more visually appealing when you come to use the New Zealand spinach in the future. Freezing is a great way to preserve this, and you will see that it goes down to not very much at all. But it's a great way of getting extra nutrients into your food. So I'm just giving this a stir, making sure that the leaves are getting all pushed under this hot water, and I can feel that the ones underneath are just about ready. So it's finding that balance and making sure that everything is wilted down enough but not overly wilted. So yeah, this is where I wasn't too clever. I should have just lifted these out with a slotted spoon. I thought I'd be clever and use the pasta insert, but I ended up getting water all over the cooker. Yeah, we live and learn. And yeah, I managed not to burn myself, so I'm taking that as a win. Anyway, I've strained the majority of the hot water out there, and I'm tipping that straight into the ice water bath. I'm going to push these leaves underneath, stop that cooking process instantly. That's really, really important that we get these leaves cooled down as quickly as possible. And I'm just making sure that I get every last scrap out of there, because the amount of time it took me to pick those leaves, I am not wasting anything, believe you me. That was that was a job and a half, but well worth doing. And I actually was on the phone to my mum when I was picking these leaves, so she helped me get through that. So as you can see, they're that lovely bright green colour that we've managed to preserve. This is absolutely what we want. It's not gone over or sludgy, and I'm ecstatic with that. So the next step is to grab a wodge, the very technical term that, a wodge, and we're going to press as much liquid out as we possibly can and form it into a little nugget. This is essentially what they look like when you buy frozen spinach from the supermarket. I'm just doing my own version. So I'm putting these on a lined baking tray, and then I will put these in the freezer, and once it's frozen up, they'll go into a Ziploc bag, and they will take up so much less space, and it just means that I have a portion. It really, really did just I was surprised with how little I actually came out with when I compressed all of these. So I wish I had actually done more throughout the season. So it's a lesson learned for next growing season, is to continually harvest and do something like this, because it's an excellent way to get the greens in through the winter time. It's great for using soups and stews and things like that. And every year I learn new things to do with the produce that we have in the gardens, be it a different way to cook it or a different way of preserving it. And that's what I love about being able to grow our own food, is you're constantly evolving what you do in the kitchen and how you eat food, the types of food that you eat. We thought this year was going to be a complete and utter disaster with the garden, but we're feeling a lot more positive coming out the other side of it. For those of you that don't know, we got some manure for the garden that was contaminated with aminopyralid, which is a broadleaf pesticide, and it caused a lot of issues with our plants. So we didn't think we were going to get any harvest at all, but we've been really, really lucky with what we did get. So we're hoping for an even better season next year. So I was left with, how many have we got? 8, 9, 10, 11 nuggets of New Zealand spinach. So these are ready to go in the freezer now, and that's exactly where they're going to go. So do you remember in last week's video when I started a new sourdough starter? Well, I'm still getting it going and established, and it is day 7 today. So I am just repeating the process that I've been doing all week of weighing out my discard, or the remaining starter that I want to keep, and then adding equal parts of flour and water to that and mixing that up. So in this case, I'm weighing out 50 grams of sourdough starter, and I've weighed out 50 grams of flour and put that in, and I'm then going to weigh out my 50 grams of water. And I know last week I said I generally eyeball it, but when I'm getting the starter established, I don't want to be wasting too much. So this is why I'm being precise with it. Once my starter is established, I will not play fast and loose, but I will I will be a lot less regimented. I know the texture that I want to get for my sourdough starter. But at the moment, it's a case of building up those good yeasts in there. And a lot of people are under the assumption that they can get a sourdough starter going in under a week, and that's too short a time. There is still sort of acids in there that are not very good for us at that point. So we need to wait for them to dissipate and let all that good yeasty beastie bacteria build up in there. So I am just continuing on with the process, and it is a process, and I will keep you guys updated with it, and do some more in-depth stuff in the future. But as you can see, that is the starter all mixed in the jar. I'm just going to wipe down the sides of the jar there, make it nice and clean so that I can see inside if it has risen or fallen. But it's kind of not at that stage yet, so I'm not overly concerned. Whilst I was out in the polytunnel harvesting the New Zealand spinach, I also cut a pretty good amount of lemon verbena that was in there. I'm going to hang it up on Samson to dry, and use in herbal teas and in tinctures and things like that. Now, some people have deer heads just as ornament, but I like to put mine to work. Samson here makes an excellent herb drying rack, much to David's dismay, but it makes me happy, and it makes good use of the available space. So on here I've got some lemon verbena that has been drying previously, and I've also got feverfew from the garden, and I have got some of our elephant garlic that was harvested earlier as well. So we're making good use of Samson. He's pulling his weight here. So I want to show you this bit of kit. We invested in this semi-industrial mincer last year, and we do enough meat processing of our own that it just makes sense to get a decent bit of equipment that is going to last and do the job in a timely fashion. Previously, we had a just small home mincer, and that was grand, but it was just taking a long time to do things. And when we had a bit of spare money last year, we just thought, you know what, let's get something decent. So we bought this one from Vivor, and it's been absolutely fabulous. So what I'm doing is I am mincing some venison that we had chopped up and weighed out previously and put in the freezer because we just didn't have the time or the headspace to deal with it. And I'm also putting in some pork fat. I don't know if you remember me showing you the packs of pork fat that I put away. Well, these are a couple of them. So I have exactly the right amount of venison fat here, and I'm just mixing that through because venison is a very, very lean red meat. It doesn't have intermuscular fat like beef does. So if you don't add the fat into it when you're making things like burgers and sausages, they can end up very, very dry. Well, that's okay if that's what you want, but I would, when I'm having a sausage or a burger, I want something that's succulent and it's a bit juicy, So adding that little bit of pork fat in really does make the difference. And this has been defrosting in inverted commas for the last couple of days, and it's still frozen solid in some places. But this mincer is handling it no bother. And I've got my trusty big bowl again. I'm going to have to do this in a couple of batches because there is so much of it. I worked it out after I've finished mincing everything, and we're going to end up with about 20 kilos of sausage meat once we've added in the sausage mix and everything. It took me a wee while to work out the ratios because I was having a bit of a moment. But, we all have moments like that, and it's been a busy day. So I've just remembered I need the dauber, because sticking one's fingers down into the mincer is not a clever idea. So yeah, I really should remember to use that. Now that I've finished mincing that batch, it's time to move on to the next step. As you can see, there's quite a mountain of it. So I am going to have to separate this because there's no way I can do mixing even with my really, really big bowl. So I have weighed all the meat out and divided it in half, and I've poured in the sausage mix. Now we get our venison sausage mix from a company called Scoby's, and they're like a butcher's supplier. They do everything you could possibly want to do with meat. Your knives, you can buy mincers and stuff like that off of them, but we haven't. But we found that their seasonings are really, really good to use when you understand how to use the recipe and not having a thick moment. But that's just me anyway. So what you do is you pour the seasoning mix in. Now what I should have done, instead of pouring the entire packet in, is add it in stages, but the kids were here and I just wanted to get it done. So it gets really, really dry because it contains the rusk, which is actually another really important ingredient when you're making things like sausages. That helps to hold on to the juices that are in the meat and makes for a more succulent sausage, basically. Otherwise, if you have pure meat, it is just going to be really dry and not pleasant. So now that we have mixed that sausage seasoning through as best we can, I am weighing out the water, and it's really, really important that everything is weighed and not measured. I know with water it tends to be, like for like, mils to grams, but I just wanted to be accurate with it. As it turns out, I probably could have added a bit extra water in. It was a little on the dry side, but that's fine. This is the first time I've actually done this on my own. Usually David and I would do it as a team. Let me tell you, that meat is super cold, even with gloves on my hands. Like it gets into the bone, the cold. Now you're probably wondering why I'm wearing gloves and doing all this work with the meat, but if I had to stop and wash my hands after every time, my hands would be in pieces, and I just find it a lot easier to wear the gloves. You'll have to excuse my son having a meltdown in the background. I wouldn't stop to go and get an ice lolly out of the freezer. So yeah, my son is having a meltdown in the background there. But it's family life. It's the after school meltdown. Apparently waiting 2 minutes just wasn't quite good enough. So as you can see, I'm adding the water in just bit by bit and working that through, because it's really important to make sure it is all worked through. And just when you think that you've finished working stuff through, you find another pocket of seasoning or a bit of water in there. But this isn't the final stage. You're going to see in a second what the next step is. So now that we have mixed that all through, I've changed the plate for a slightly smaller plate. It was basically inside the mincer there is a circular plate that goes in and it has different sized holes in it. So I've just gone for like a medium size. I think it's probably about the 5mm hole size, and I'm putting the sausage mix through that. And the reason for doing this is that it just helps to combine all the ingredients really well. You're making sure that everything gets that extra mix. You could just leave it at mixing through by hand, but it's recommended to do this step, and I find it gives a much better product. So I've finished putting that first batch through. So that's 10 kilos. Now I've stolen a little bit of this to make some sausage rolls for dinner. This is a favourite in our house. The kids absolutely love it. Usually I'd make a batch with 2 sheets of ready roll puff pastry because, let's face it, life is just too short and today has been far too busy. But I find myself with only 1 sheet of ready roll puff pastry, so that's what we're going to have to use. So I'm just rolling out some of the sausage meat in between my hands, and I've cut this sheet into 4, and I'm just laying that out and putting a bit of egg wash down the side there so it sticks. Now I think I probably overstuffed this one a little bit, but I was being optimistic. I promise you it did work. There was no blowouts when I cooked them. Just fitted and no more, but we were all very, very happy with the result. So now that I have got the sausage rolls rolled up, I'm going to sugar these onto a baking tray. Not the most flattering look there than the reflection, but anyway. I have my oven preheated to, I think I had it at 200 degrees Celsius. Now this is a fan oven, so it probably could have been down to about 190 because my oven tends to run a bit hot anyway. I am just dividing these up into three. A couple of my kids are younger, so they're not going to eat massive sausage rolls. And I was hoping for leftovers, but alas, there was none. Well, I'm not really disappointed. I'm glad that they all got eaten. So yeah, I'm chopping these up into three and just arranging them. Going to arrange them on the baking sheet so that they're all evenly spaced and nothing's going to attach itself to one another. It's a wee bit like a game of Jenga. You think, I can do this nice and artfully, and then no, just do it plain and simple. And the next thing that I am going to be doing is I'm going to put some slices. So I usually do about 3 diagonal slices. That just allows the pastry to sort of puff up without any expansion explosions going on. And I'll do that for all 12 of these. It amazes me that, a couple of years ago when I was making these, I would have leftovers, and now that the kids are growing up, there aren't as many leftovers as there used to be. But that's not a bad complaint. So the final thing I'm going to do is just brush the pastry with a bit of egg wash. Now, I'm going to try and avoid the cut edge because that will stop the pastry from expanding the way you want it to. So I'm just trying to get it on the top there, but not on that cut edge. And it also gives it a really nice kind of golden colour too. You can skip this step, or if you don't have egg, you could just use milk. That's also a really, really good thing to use on pastry to give it that sheen. So these are going to go into the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. You just have to judge it by your oven. Every oven is different. So there we have it. Sausage rolls ready for the oven. And it's gloves off time. Hurrah! So these are the sausage rolls fresh out of the oven, and they smell amazing. Our tummies are all rumbling, and so we're going to go and have some dinner before we finish up with the sausage meat, because that saga still hasn't finished for today. But yeah, everybody's looking forward to these. So once we had finished with dinner, it was time to sort out that sausage meat. So here we have yet another piece of large kitchen equipment. Has been said we may be better equipped than some commercial kitchens, but I'm not going to complain about that. So we're using this to put the sausage meat into these aptly named sausage meat bags. They go over the sausage horn. That is the correct name for it. And you crank the handle, and that forces the meat out into the bag. And then you just fill it to the level that you want it at. These are a bit bigger than the ones that I would normally get. I think these ones actually hold about 1 kilo, but we probably don't put that much in just because we need space to twist the end and then seal it with a bag sealer. When the bag sealer works, I think our one might be on the way out. But we're absolutely delighted. We got 28 bags of sausage meat to put in the freezer, ready to be turned into sausage rolls and things like that. So thank you so much for joining me this week whilst I potter away in the kitchen, preserving food and getting things for the freezer. If you've enjoyed this, please hit that subscribe button and don't forget to tune in every Thursday.